No mother who does this knows what she's doing. That's the hardest part to understand. That's the part that doctors who treat these cases take home after their shift and can't leave at the hospital. There's no recognizable negligence. There's no visible recklessness. There's a mother who did what grandmothers teach, what motherhood websites suggest, what the culture of natural baby care has normalized for centuries. She put honey in the baby's bottle to help with constipation, to sweeten it a little, because honey is natural, because honey is ancient, because honey can't be dangerous. Maya Fontaine was 6 months old and had been born completely healthy in Nashville, Tennessee. Normal weight, no complications at birth, perfect first checkups. Her mother, Claire, 26, an elementary school teacher, had researched infant feeding extensively. She had read articles. She had followed conscious parenting profiles on Instagram. She had consulted her maternal grandmother, who had raised 4 children on honey and hadn't lost any. On a Thursday night in November, Claire put a teaspoon of organic honey, the expensive kind, the dark kind, the kind that costs $22 in a glass jar at a health food store in Nashville, into Maya's baby bottle. Maya fell asleep. Maya didn't wake up. The honey didn't kill Maya quickly. It didn't poison her in the way that human instinct recognizes as poisoning. The honey did something much quieter, much more precise, and much more impossible to reverse once the process has begun. Inside the organic honey that Claire bought at a health food store, inside any honey, regardless of origin, organic certification, or price, are spores of Clostridium botulinum, not the toxin. The spores. Microscopic encapsulated structures that adults and children over 1 year old eliminate without consequence because the mature digestive system doesn't allow them to germinate. Gastric acid, established gut microbiota, the motility of the adult digestive tract, all these mechanisms exist and function as a barrier. In babies under 12 months old, this barrier does not exist. A baby's gut is a different environment, less acidic. Microbiota still forming, reduced motility. Conditions that are irrelevant to an adult are the perfect incubator for C. botulinum spores to germinate, proliferate, and begin producing botulinum toxin, the most lethal protein per unit of weight known to science. The lethal dose of botulinum toxin for an adult human is estimated at 1 to 2 nanograms per kilogram of body weight. A nanogram is 1/1000th of a gram. In Maya, weighing approximately 7 kilograms, the lethal dose was 7 to 14 nanograms total, an amount invisible to any household measuring instrument, silently produced within the baby's own gut over hours by the bacteria that the teaspoon of honey had delivered. What the CDC data documents about the number of infant botulism cases diagnosed annually in the United States versus the estimated number that remain undiagnosed is the detail that transforms this case of individual tragedy into a systemic problem. But the mechanism by which botulinum toxin destroys neuromuscular function, not the muscle, not the nerve, but the junction between them, is the process that no mother can imagine while putting honey in a baby bottle in a Nashville kitchen on a November night. Claire realized something was wrong at 7:40 a.m. on Friday when she went to Maya's room and she hadn't woken up. Maya always woke up. Maya was a wake up at 6, cry at 6:30, demand her bottle immediate baby. At 7:40 a.m. she was quiet. Claire touched her. Maya was limp. Not relaxed like a sleeping baby, limp in a different way. A way Claire felt before processing what she was feeling. Absent muscle tone. Her head fell to the side without any resistance when Claire lifted it. She called 911 at 7:43 a.m. The paramedic who arrived first documented in the call report. Baby found with no muscle tone, shallow breathing, unresponsive to stimuli, pupils dilated bilaterally. The paramedic attempted to stabilize the airway. Maya was transported to Vanderbilt University Medical Center under code. In the Vanderbilt emergency room, the on-call pediatrician saw a 6-month-old baby with descending flaccid paralysis, the specific clinical pattern in which weakness begins in the muscles of the face and eyes and progresses downward, muscle by muscle, toward the diaphragm. It was only the second time in this doctor's 12-year career that he had seen this specific pattern. There were 2 possibilities before him at that moment. The first was to treat the condition symptomatically while awaiting a diagnosis of ventilatory support, monitoring, sequential tests. The second option was to immediately consider infant botulism as the primary hypothesis, contact the CDC for emergency access to botulinum immunoglobulin, baby by big, the only specific treatment available, produced exclusively by the California Department of Public Health, and available only with emergency authorization, and begin the process before the paralysis completely affected the diaphragm. The pediatrician considered both hypotheses. He chose the first while waiting for the test results. It was 8:31 a.m. Botulinum immunoglobulin takes between 4 and 24 hours to be released and transported after the request is made to the CDC. Maya went into respiratory failure at 11:17 a.m. She was intubated. She survived. But the window in which Baby Big could have neutralized the circulating toxin before the accumulated neuromuscular damage required months of recovery had closed while the pediatrician awaited routine tests. Clostridium botulinum is an organism that biology has constructed to be incomprehensible to the human instinct for risk assessment. It has no odor. It has no color. It does not alter the appearance or taste of the food that contains it. It does not produce immediate symptoms in the consumer. And the spores, the latent and resistant form that contaminates honey, survive boiling temperatures for more than 3 hours, which means that boiling honey does not solve the problem. Processing honey does not solve it. Refrigerating does not solve it. The only intervention that works is not giving honey to babies under 12 months old. Never. In any quantity. In any form. For any reason. The CDC documents between 70 and 100 cases of infant botulism per year in the United States, the country with the highest number of documented cases globally, because it is also the country with the greatest diagnostic capacity. The actual prevalence is estimated to be significantly higher because mild to moderate infant botulism is often treated as floppy baby or infantile hypotonia of undetermined cause in hospitals with less diagnostic capacity. The main documented source of exposure is not industrial or low-quality honey. It is organic, artisanal honey from small producers, exactly the type that conscious consumers buy as a safer alternative. The presence of C. botulinum spores in honey is not a production flaw. It is a biological characteristic. The spores naturally inhabit the soil and the environment where bees collect nectar. There is no production process that eliminates them without destroying the honey. There is no organic certification that prevents their presence. The purest, most natural, and most expensive honey in the world contains C. botulinum, spores with the same probability as industrial honey. Once produced in the baby's intestine and absorbed into the bloodstream, botulinum toxin travels to the neuromuscular junctions, the points where motor nerves connect to muscle fibers, and blocks the release of acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter that controls muscle contraction. This blockage occurs by cleaving SNAR proteins, the molecular mechanisms that the neuromuscular junction uses to release acetylcholine. Without released acetylcholine, the muscle fiber does not receive the command to contract. Without contraction, the muscle becomes flaccid, and the muscles stop in a specific order. First, the oculomotor muscles. The baby stops following objects with its eyes, the eyelids droop. Then the swallowing muscles. The baby stops sucking, the crying weakens. Then the neck muscles. The head falls uncontrollably. Then the limb muscles. Finally, and this is where the window of life closes, the respiratory muscles. The diaphragm. The baby stops breathing. In Maya's case, this process took approximately 14 hours from the honey bottle to emergency intubation. 14 hours during which she slept, because a baby with botulism seems to be sleeping until it is no longer sleeping. In 2018, researchers from the California Department of Public Health published in the journal Pediatrics a retrospective analysis of 481 cases of infant botulism treated with Baby Big between 1992 and 2017. The data documented that babies who received the immunoglobulin within the first 12 hours after hospitalization had an average hospital stay of 44 days. Babies who received treatment after 24 hours had an average hospital stay of 68 days. The difference, a 24-hour delay in diagnosis, resulted in an average of 24 additional days of hospitalization and mechanical ventilation. Maya was hospitalized for 61 days, 43 of them on mechanical ventilation, 19 in muscle function rehabilitation. Baby Big was administered on the 12th day of hospitalization, 6 days after the botulism diagnosis was confirmed and 3 days after the CDC authorized emergency treatment. The treatment exists. The window exists. The diagnosis didn't come in time. Claire's instinct hadn't been wrong. Honey is natural. Honey has documented antimicrobial properties in adults. Honey is used on wounds, in therapies, in pharmaceutical formulations. For an adult, honey is safe. For Claire, honey was safe. For Claire's maternal grandmother, honey had been safe for 4 children. The instinct to protect Maya with something natural, organic, free of chemical additives, the same instinct that had led Claire to the health food store, to the $22 honey, to the choice of a substance with a history of millennia of safe human use, created the conditions for C. botulinum to find a 6-month-old intestine where its spores could finally do what spores do when they find the right environment. The tradition wasn't wrong for the adults who practiced it. It was catastrophically wrong for the babies who couldn't process what adults process without even knowing they're doing it. And no conscious parenting website Claire had read had explained the difference between spores and toxin, between adults and babies under 12 months, between what honey does to a mature gut and what it does to a developing gut. The $22 organic honey had a pretty label. It didn't have that warning. What the American healthcare system learned from Maya Fontaine, from the 481 cases documented by the California Department of Public Health, and from the undocumented cases in hospitals without diagnostic capacity for infant botulism, is that the warning against honey in babies under 12 months is both widely known in the medical environment and systematically absent from the information channels that mothers actually access before making that decision. The warning has been in American pediatric guidelines since 1978. It's on the CDC website. It's in pediatric textbooks. It's not on honey labels. It's not on the natural parenting websites Claire regularly consulted. It wasn't in the conversation with her maternal grandmother, who had done the same thing without consequence, because none of her children had had the specific combination of factors that made Maya's exposure fatal. What Maya never received was the first 61 days of life outside of a hospital. The recovery was complete neurologically, muscularly, functionally. Maya is 2 years old now, and there are no documented aftereffects. She won't remember. Claire remembers for both of them. The label was pretty. The warning wasn't there. The difference between honey that does nothing to a baby and honey that causes infant botulism is not the brand, not the origin, not the production process, and not the price. It's the baby's age. Below 12 months, no honey is safe, organic, artisanal, raw, pasteurized, industrial, or imported. No quantity is safe. No preparation is safe. A microscopic amount of C. botulinum spores in a baby's intestine is enough to start the process. If you have a baby under 12 months at home or know someone who does, communicate this information directly. Honey cannot be part of a baby's diet before 12 months. Not as a sweetener, not mixed with other foods, not in formula, not in teas, not in processed foods that list honey among the ingredients, not in small quantities, no. If a baby under 12 months old presents with sudden muscle weakness, weak or absent cry, difficulty sucking, uncontrolled head drop, or drooping eyelids, especially in the hours following any unusual food exposure, go to the emergency room immediately and explicitly tell the attending physician the words infant botulism. Ask that the CDC be contacted for authorization of baby BIG. Don't wait for routine tests to rule out other possibilities. The therapeutic window in infant botulism is measured in hours. Maya survived because Claire arrived at the hospital before her diaphragm completely stopped, and because Vanderbilt had the diagnostic capability to identify the specific clinical pattern, and because Baby Big exists and was eventually authorized. 3 conditions that needed to occur together for Maya to be 2 years old today. Most mothers don't know they need all 3 at the same time. But honey isn't the only substance with a millennia-old historical presence in human cuisine that produces a biologically catastrophic effect in babies under a certain age through a mechanism that adults never experience. In the next video, the carrot juice that American parents are giving babies as their first solid food, and the nitrite that naturally forms during the digestion of root vegetables in babies under 4 months old, which produces methemoglobinemia, the condition in which the blood loses its ability to carry oxygen, and which in the 1990s killed babies before anyone understood what was happening.